think if you get to use your strengths every day, you're 3 times more likely to enjoy what you do. You're 6 times more likely to have a longer life. There's a whole lot of benefits to doing what you do, what you feel comes naturally to you, what you actually really love to do.
Hello, Masterpiece Makers. Welcome to another episode of Making a Masterpiece. I am your host, Norbert Elnar. And as always, we are here to make sure that we build your faith and inspire your business. And guys, today, man, this is one of my dream interviews, actually. And joining me on the show is Mike Sadie. Mike Sadie is not a normal human being, in my opinion. He has been in ministry, leading and pioneering churches for more than 17 years. And now he has pivoted his career and his life into coaching and executive coaching. And he's doing a lot of things, but we're going to learn from him today. Welcome, Mike Sadie, to the show. Hello, Mike.
Norbert, welcome. So good to have you. So good to have you. You're so good. You're so happy to have me. I think you need to dream bigger. If your biggest dream was to have me on your show, you definitely need to dream bigger. But yeah, thank you so much for the invitation. It's an absolute privilege to be here with the Masterpiece. And I've been following what you guys have been doing. And yeah, I'm really, really just privileged to be here this morning with you and with all the listeners. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mike. Wow, it is really true. Just to give you context, I want to share just to our listeners why this is a dream interview. When a lot of our listeners know that I went to South Africa in 2015, and
because that's where God lives.
Yes.
Yes.
So we pivoted. I also did soul searching at that time, which eventually led me to South Africa, and I did this biblical internship program, and then during at that time, Mike was a campus pastor. And I tell you, every time we had leadership roundtables, one of our favorites was Mike Sadie, because it's this guy. He makes it look so easy. And that's where I want to start, Mike. Can you just share a little bit about your journey and how did you transition from being a church planter, and you did this very well and for a very long time, and into now coaching executives and the business leaders? And what was the defining moment that led you into this space?
Yeah, thanks, Norbert. Yeah, look, I've been in ministry for over 22 years. And initially, 2002, got involved in a church. And the rest of my journey was with the same church. Relocated back to South Africa. I was actually in London at that time. Relocated back to South Africa in 2010. And then pretty much just got involved and launched the first location of the church, the first campus, as a volunteer. So I was leading that for about a year and a half. And then we had more opportunities in another part of South Africa to launch. And yeah, I probably put my hand up and went for it. And so over the few years of being involved in ministry there, planted 4 different locations. And I think as you go on a journey of life, you figure things out about yourself. You realize there's things that you love to do, things you don't love to do. And I realized I had a bit of a pioneer spirit. Every 2 years, I would do something new and do something fresh. I was that kind of guy that probably 2 years down, I'd be a little bit bored. I'll get a little bit agitated and I'll feel like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the new thing? So I did that for a few years. And I think for most people during COVID was a real awakening. We went through COVID, and in that moment, life slowed down quite a bit. Being involved in ministry, and we were a very fast moving organization and growing very rapidly, you just get caught up in the busyness and the rush and all the excitement that goes, I think, with anything, building a business, building an organized church organization. If things are going well, you just keep on running. There's got so much momentum. You really think about where we're going, where we're going to end up. And I think COVID really was a sudden stop for many people. And in that moment, we just had our third child, our third boy. I have 3 boys. And they are now 9, 7, and 5. And in that moment of COVID, really were just looking at my boys at one day and just thought to myself, who are these guys? And my youngest son, my oldest son was 5 years old. I thought, who is this guy? It feels like I've lost 5 years of just being so busy. Ministry is very demanding, Monday to Friday. The kids were going to school. Sunday, you're full out busy with church. So it's really Saturday, but Saturday you're so tired, you just want to rest. You just want to take a moment. And I think as a family, we just realized in that moment, we really want to change our lifestyle. We really want to design a different life for ourselves. Love the idea you can live by default or you can live by design. You can live according to how others are creating your life, or you can create the life that you're after. And we wanted to be a little bit more intentional in that. So that was the first thought to me, that we need to really change how we do life, because we want to have a great relationship with our boys and we want to be really intentional with our life. I think that was the first one. The second one was, I probably got really frustrated because I would see people in church over the span of years and I wouldn't see lives change. We would run programs through church and we'll do all sorts of different things, but I didn't really see the progress I would have loved to see in church. People sit in the same seat Sunday after Sunday, but I couldn't see those lives move forward. And I thought there's something wrong. If Christianity and salvation is just you commit your life and that's it, then there's something wrong. You want to see change. You want to see people's lives move forward. You want to see them grow as an individual, as a family, finances. You want to see people progress. I really believe that God's called every person to continue to grow and go from strength to strength. So that was kind of like the second thing. And the third thing is, there were some areas in my life that I felt a little bit unfulfilled. And that's how I ended up in coaching. I wasn't not familiar with coaching. During COVID, I did an executive coaching course, and that really lighted me up. I realized there's other things and there's things inside of me which is dormant. I want to see how I can get more of that out. And then, you just go on the whole journey of self-discovery, self-awareness. Similar probably to you. You came to South Africa and you just grow in self-awareness. You grow in understanding of who you are. And for me, that was really COVID. That was my COVID story. I really just went into learning more about me. So I did that course. Then a year later, I did another course, which is the Gallup Clifton Strengths course, which has really just helped me to understand, okay, what are my strengths? What are the things that I uniquely do? My natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior. And that just then over the last 3-4 years, just figured out, okay, with all of this knowledge that I have now, what is the next step? And for me, it really became an idea of what if I could step into this world of coaching. It's a massive industry at the moment, but there's always gaps. There's always people that require help in growth and getting probably a little bit more direction or getting a plan for their lives. And so I just headed up into that industry. And I can say it's been an incredible journey. It's been a challenging journey, as you build any business, but really enjoy what I get to do now. And I get to use my strengths every day. If you can get to use your strengths every day, there's not many people in their work environments that get to say, I use my strengths. And if you look at statistics, Gallup does a lot of statistics. I think if you get to use your strengths every day, you're 3 times more likely to enjoy what you do. You're 6 times more likely to have a longer life. There's a whole lot of benefits to doing what you do, what you feel comes naturally to you, what you actually really love to do. And so it's just a journey of self-discovery. And that's kind of like how I ended up in this journey now, coaching and being able to really help people move forward with their lives. So it really came from frustration, I think, frustration with self, frustration with not seeing lives move forward.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing, Mike. I just want to tell you that sounded very genuine, and I love it because you actually it feels like you just gave our masterpiece makers, our listeners, permission to feel these things. Honestly, you are one of the most, in my journey, like we hear you on Sundays on platform, we see you, how you do life, and you do well, okay? Like, you've represented leadership very well, and now you made it look easy, but it wasn't actually that easy. It felt like there was just really grace over that period and you owning it and just doing it. I'm glad that you mentioned the word frustration, because I think a lot of our listeners, a lot of our leaders, business owners, and just like dads really feel that. There's probably like what people think about them in the outside, that little bit of frustration nagging inside. And for you, this actually listening to that sort of this frustration made the change and made you a better person. Will you say that was what happened?
Yeah, definitely. I think oftentimes your frustration, it points to a few things. It points to, maybe for me, it really pointed to strengths that I probably knew I had. I couldn't put my foot on what that was, but there was some level of being unfulfilled. And there's so many things that fulfill different people. What I've realized is when people do what comes naturally to them, their natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior, if they can get to do more of that on a daily basis, it's not just a win for them, but it's a win for the companies they work for. It's a win for their family. If I'm a frustrated husband, I get home, it really doesn't help with family life. So I would definitely say frustration. If you look at any company that exists, the only reason they exist is due to someone had a frustration and they said, we need to change this. this doesn't work. How do we use this and create something better out of it? So most businesses come from a frustration, someone's frustration. Someone saw a need and thought, this is frustrating me. How do we change it? So yeah, I think frustration, I think being able to be honest, being able to name your feelings, I think it's really important in this last journey. That's probably something I've realized. Always been a high achiever, but being able to name your feelings, take a moment, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, see frustration as your friend because it probably highlights opportunities that's right ahead of you.
Wow. That's profound. And that's also just a sign of like immense humility, right? To be able to acknowledge that, okay, I'm not really good at this and I'm struggling and this needs to change. Mike, you have worked and I've seen you do this. You have spoken and worked with a lot of Christian, kingdom minded business owners and you've journeyed with them for quite a bit. And then you've seen them build and rise, and some of them didn't succeed. But in your experience, what are some of the most common pitfalls that Christian entrepreneurs experience, whether in leadership, in their decision making, in their family life, in their faith, or integration into this new lifestyle? What patterns have you seen entrepreneurs fall into and that they should be mindful of so that they don't fail?
Yeah. Look, I think the more I head into the coaching world, as we just spoke, you could look at someone you think they've got it all together. Life's amazing, building a great business on a platform. They've got a big following. From the outset, it could always look like things are really working well for them. But oftentimes, I think what you find is there's things maybe that's not getting addressed. For me, definitely, that was the case. There were things that I wasn't addressing, and I realized, wow, I need to look at it. So for me, the first piece for any leader to really go the way is self-awareness. And with so many people that I've coached, if you do coaching with an executive, it's usually about really the grow model. What's your goal? What's your reality? What's the options ahead of you? And what's the way forward? It's very simple. It's not very complicated. It's all about reaching your goals, all about hitting your targets. That's kind of like the executive coaching package that's out in the world because it's all about progress. It's all about performance, which is why I changed quite a bit of what I do. So if you want to go on an executive coaching journey with me, I always start with who are you? Who are the person that I'm talking to? So I use the Gallup Clifton Strengths. I think it's an incredible tool. And my first prerequisite would always be that you do the Gallup Clifton Strengths because I first want to see who are you that I'm working with. I want them to build a greater self-awareness of who they are. I want them to understand who they are, their strengths, their weaknesses, their potential blind spots, because it shows up all the time. And oftentimes we're unaware of how it shows up in our world, whether it's family or in our companies. But I think it's a really good exercise first for me always. And it always opens up a whole lot of other things that people didn't think about. Self-awareness for me is the first piece. What are the things that you're enjoying to do? What are the things that's frustrating you? How can we build some self-awareness around who you are? The second thing, there's a really good book from Jim Collins. I don't know if you're familiar with Jim Collins, but it's called How the Mighty Fall. And I think after COVID, I had obviously went on this journey and I've read some of his books, Built to Last, Good to Great. I've read a whole lot of his books. But what I could see during COVID is there was a whole lot of companies, organizations, churches that were busy failing and falling. And I kind of questioned, what is the reason? And I downloaded this book and I would stand at my boys at soccer and I would listen to this book. I probably listened to it 3 or 4 or 5 times because I wanted to understand what is it about organizations. And they have something which they call, I think, the 5 levels or the 5, can't remember what's it called, 5 steps of decline. I think that's it. And the first step is called hubris. Now, hubris born of success. It means that you're so successful that you become arrogant and you stop thinking through the fundamentals of what got me here. You kind of lose the fundamentals. The second step, I think, it's the undisciplined pursuit for more. So now, you've come so far, there's more. And it's got 5 stages that's worked through. But one thing I've realized is that we all are susceptible to hubris, which is born of success. We might have success at something. I've been in that seat. I've had success in certain things. And then I think, and I'm so awesome. I can scale. I can do whatever, only to find myself in a really deep, dark pit. But it's because of the hubris born of success. If you look at leaders that fail and leaders that fall, whether in church or in companies, it's that hubris born of success. So for me, that is really 2 things. One is self-awareness, and I think self-awareness plays into the hubris born of success. And yeah, that's the second thing. Yeah, I think for me, it's always trying to firstly to go, let's build your self-awareness. Let's help you to see the things you can't see. And then what is your ego like? And if big companies fall due to hubris, people also fall due to hubris. Great leaders fall due to hubris. And we're all susceptible to it at the end of the day.
Wow. Crazy, hey. That's actually something that we think we know, but we actually neglect. I was expecting an answer like you need to have this kind of competence on this certain area, and we have to watch out all these kind of self-help. But what you're saying now is a deeper level of awareness for oneself. It's interesting because I feel like when you're leading something, the more you mature, the older you get, you acquire that certain kind of pride, right? I know myself very well. Like, why do I need to know again myself more? But what you're actually bringing it back together and centering on your own person and your own core. And I think it changes over time. That's why it's very important that you're always aware.
Yeah, just on that, you were talking about as you grow and as you grow in levels of leadership. And 99%, Norbert, if I work with companies in terms of coaching, take the whole team through the Gallup Clifton Strengths, can I just say, very rarely does the CEO or the leader do their Gallup Clifton Strengths, and very rarely do they come in for coaching. It's oftentimes that they would send their team and their team needs to do the coaching. For me, that's always a little bit frustration because really a leader create after themselves. And if there's no level of awareness, and unfortunately, that's what you often see. For me, it's really when a leader is humble enough to go on the journey. Now, I'm not saying it's everybody. I've coached some corporates which the leader is all about it. He wants to get to know themselves or she wants to get to know herself. And I see success in that team because everybody is on the learning path and growing as individuals. Unfortunately, that's just what, as people, hubris born of success, I can do these things, I've done these things. And that is exactly what Jim Collins writes, How the Mighty Fall, is you grow an ego through all the success.
Years ago, I started a personal journey to help provide professional creative communication solutions to brands born out of faith and big dreams, but running on limited resources. Before finding my true calling in ministry, I was an advertising professional, and I always felt frustrated whenever a great idea, product, service, or community initiative didn't take off simply because branding wasn't a priority. I've seen too many faith-oriented entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders make this mistake because they don't have access to professional creative services, or they are put off by the high cost and consumerist approach. I decided to use my experiences in mainstream advertising and in ministry to bridge the gap. The result is a 6-module branding course that can help transform brands, effectively tell their stories, reach their audience, and help them achieve their goals. Teaching this to business owners and leaders, I've seen it transform confusing concepts into real brands that cut through the noise and make real everyday impact. I believe that brands can be a blessing to the world, solving problems and easing burdens, fueled by passion and driven by purpose. That is what we aim to do with Masterpiece Kingdom Brands. If this resonates with you and you're ready to uncover your Kingdom brand, let's connect. Sign up for the Masterpiece Kingdom Brand Building course today. Yes, that's not easy, hey. It takes a huge amount of humility and leading by example. I've also experienced that in a lot of my clients as well. We take them into this brand journey, but then you realize that sometimes the leaders also just send the people, which is amazing, but the vision, the big message comes from the founder's heart. And that's why this is where the ego comes in and where the conflict rises within the organization. Mike, Christian entrepreneurs often face intense challenges in a lot of areas, both in business and in their calling. What habits or practices have you seen through the years that have helped leaders stay strong amidst difficult times? And in your own way, how do you think we can help our listeners prevent from burning out in this mission-driven industry? Because I think we are on a mission and we're here to build God's kingdom in the marketplace and shine that light. But it gets a little discouraging with everything that's going on. In your experience, what have you seen? And what are these things?
Yeah, I think that's quite a big question. I think there's many avenues you can go down. I think maybe let's first address the burnout piece, because I think the burnout piece is really very relevant for many. And many people have different takes on burnout. But essentially, burnout is really about you end up in a really bad pattern of thinking for a very long time. I've gone through burnout myself twice because I'm an achiever, which is one of my strengths, but it's also potentially one of my greatest weaknesses. But being able to go on the journey of self-discovery, I realized and start knowing what to look for. What I've realized is that oftentimes burnout is just a very bad pattern of thinking for a long, extended time. It's not that anything is demanding, it's that you potentially think it's demanding. Or it's not that anything wrong with the world, it's that you think. But it probably starts, let me just reverse and rewind there a little bit. Oftentimes what I have found when people burn out is that they are placed in oftentimes in positions that doesn't allow them to work within their strengths. So oftentimes people are not well aligned in what comes most naturally to them. And through the coaching, oftentimes that's what I help people to do, is to help them align to positions or roles that help them do what comes more naturally to them. So if you think about someone in the coaching I do, there's 4 different domains. There's a strategic thinking domain, there's a relationship building, an influencing domain, and then an executing domain. Oftentimes, if you find people that are very highly relational, but in an executing job, you would often find that after a while, could be 3 months, 6 months, they start talking about, I'm really tired, I feel like I'm hitting burnout. It's really because they are not well aligned with their role. It's not that they're well aligned with what they need to do. Or you find someone that's very good with executing things, but you want them to connect with people and build relationships. It's not always a thing that comes naturally. It doesn't mean they can't. But the longer they're in that position, the longer they do that, the more tired they become, and the more they think, I'm burning out and something's going wrong. So the whole goal is with any organization and with yourself is to align yourself in something that brings you life rather than something that drains you. We all have something we need to do in our work, whether it's admin or design. So there's elements of those things in all that we do. But the question is, do you get to do more of what comes naturally? So let's say 80% of what you do you get to do that 80% of what you love to do, 80% of what comes naturally to you? Or is it you only get to do 20% and 80% is really things that you find hard to do, you struggle to do that? If you think of someone that's really good with numbers, you're not going to throw someone in to be an accountant that's not good with numbers. It's going to be a daily wrestle and stress. So really, it's all, once again, about self-awareness. What are the things that brings me alive? What are the things that gets me out of bed every morning? If you're tired in bed every morning and you think about the day and it's a really hard day and it's just so much to do and it doesn't give you energy, I'd probably really question around what it is that you're currently doing. If it's something, it might be really hard to do, but if it rejuvenates you, if it gets you out of bed, if it's a strong reason for you to get out of bed, I would say it might be hard, but you probably enjoy it and it probably exhilarates you to do that. So burnout, to me, that would be always the first question. And that's also why I do a lot of assessments with some of the leaders I work with, is first, let's see what's the natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior. What's the things that come naturally to you? And how do we create your life that you can get to do more of those things? So it's all about, once again, you either create your life or someone else will create it for you. And oftentimes, if others have created for you, you find yourself in places which might not be frustrating now, but definitely 10 years down the line, you could be potentially frustrated because you didn't design your life. So a lot of what I do is help people design maybe a path, a journey. And it doesn't mean you can do it tomorrow, but it means maybe 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now, you can be in that place, in that position, doing exactly what you're after, which is doing something that truly brings you alive. That would be my first thought around the burnout piece. And I think habits. I'm a process person. I understand that process grow people. That was part of my challenge in ministry. You build around Sundays. There's a whole lot of programs that you run. But I really believe progress happens when you are committed to a process rather than programs. I don't believe that programs grow people. A process grows people. So the question is, what is the process that you step in on a daily basis? What is your daily processes? It is oftentimes a boring life. It's thinking about you want to build muscle. The process of building muscle is every day you're going to commit to go to the gym. That is the process. Yeah, you have to wake up. You have to do what you do. That is a process. It's not going to happen through a 12-week program. You might get some initial results, but in order to see you become the Mr. Universe that you want to become, it means that it's going to be a daily process that you're going to follow. So it's really about having the right habits in your life. And I've spent, wow, probably the last 10 or so years building healthy habits into my life. And it's taken me some time, but I feel like I have a morning habit that I commit to. And I feel like it's really helping me be much more clearer. It's helping me to be more present with my family, more present with others. So I can highly recommend healthy habits. I
Yeah.
really believe that's helpful.
I have a follow up on that because I've read there's just so many studies about the morning ritual, and a lot of people say different things. But the truth of the matter is, there's something in that morning ritual that really has been proven over centuries that it really increases productivity and your performance. But Mike, if you can share, what is your morning ritual look like? I'll be curious to see if is it like you spend 5 hours, oh, not five, that's not in the morning anymore. Like what, 2 hours in whatever. Yeah. How does it look for you?
Yeah, look, as I said, I'm very process based. So for me, every morning is the same. There's no changes. The reason I like a morning ritual and my morning habits is because I've got three boys. When they wake up, my day is on a whole nother level. So I would have wanted to get myself in the right frame of mind before they wake up, because once they wake up, we actually started homeschooling after COVID as well, or last year we started homeschooling. It was one of the things which we just said we want to be part of. We want to spend more time with our kids. So you might see someone run in here, come and say hi. We wanted to integrate our life. We didn't want to send our kids off somewhere. We wanted to be responsible for them. We wanted to spend more time as a family. That's some of the big decisions that we made that, but yeah, my morning routine is really, it's about an hour and a half at most. I would wake up, I'll drink at least 750 ml water because it's good for you. You dehydrate every night. So I'll have some water and then I'll sit down. You've got a question there, Norbert?
750 ml water in the morning
Yeah.
immediately.
Cheers. I'll have some more right now.
I'm going to start to do that. That's a lot of water in the morning.
Yeah.
But yeah,
yeah. So first thing you wake up, have some water. It's just really good for your body. It hydrates you. And then if you've been a Christian for a while, there's an acronym called SOAP. Are you familiar with SOAP?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I go through SOAP every morning. I don't know why they call it SOAP. You probably just wash yourself with the Word of God every morning. I have no idea. But for those who don't know, SOAP is an acronym, and it stands for Scripture, Observation, Application,
and Prayer. Yes.
Yeah. So I find that really helpful for someone who's processed. I work through that process every morning. What's a Scripture? What's an observation through the Scripture? Application. So application is you actually put some action points together. So I will whatever, I will this, I will that. And then prayer. My prayer, I'm going to just confess, I don't pray very long. It might be 5 minutes, that I thank God for a few things, talk about a few things. And then I go into my next step. My next step would be to journal. So I take a moment and I just journal. So now it's not just God, now it's me. It's my feelings, it's what I'm thinking, the things I'm afraid about, the things I'm nervous about, the things I'm excited about. I write those things down because daily I want to gauge where I'm at. What are the things I'm going through? I'm not necessarily a feely person, but I've learned over the last few years, wow, it's good to know what you're thinking through and what you are facing and being able to communicate that and write it down. So I do that every morning, a journal. Then I take a moment and I write gratitude. So I write 3 things every morning that I'm grateful for. And oftentimes it's as simple as I'm thankful for this cup of coffee I'm having right now. Or I'm thankful to be sitting in this chair. It could be the simplest things. It could be some of the greatest things. I'm thankful that I've got breath in my lungs. I can wake up every morning. I'm thankful that God has a plan and a purpose for my life. It could be that I'm thankful that things are working for me. Whatever, gratitude is such a powerful exercise. I say even more than physical exercise, do an exercise of gratitude. And then the last thing I do is I take a moment and I just visualize what I believe I want my day to be like. It could be a conversation I need to have. It could be a meeting I'm having. I just want to take a moment and just think through that meeting. Who am I in this meeting? I want to make sure that I present my best self in that meeting. Okay, who am I? If it's a challenging conversation, I have to commit in that visualization session already. Okay, I'm going to be calm. I'm going to walk out the calm person there. I want to be proud of myself after the meeting. Being able to do that really sets you up for a day. So that's in all simplicity. It takes me about an hour and 15 minutes at the most. And then I started homeschooling. So for me, working out is a daily routine. And I'm not so much set in what the time is. It just depends on what the boys are looking like. It could be a half. Yesterday was 12 o'clock. We took an hour. We went to the gym. The boys went to the gym. Myself, my wife got to do a workout. We got 30 minutes afterwards just for us to take some time to think. And then we get the boys and we come back home. But those are daily routines, daily rituals. And it's not always set in stone in terms of time wise, but
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
means it's on my to-do list. It's on my tick
That's the
box.
process that you're talking about. And
It's a
this is a,
process. It's
yeah, it's
it's the
a,
daily process.
it has compound interest for sure.
It does. And it's
Yeah.
very boring. It doesn't excite anybody. Like one of the things, my meal every morning. So I'm a firm believer in intermittent fasting. I believe in there's something when it comes to applying that discipline also in your eating habits. So for me, 12 o'clock is my best meal of the day. I crave that meal every day. And if you're familiar with Weet-Bix, I don't know what they call it
Oh, yes.
in
I have
so
my Weet-Bix.
yeah, so I have a 1.5 Weet-Bix. I cut a banana in, I put some dates in, I put some chia seeds in, and I put some oat milk in. That is honestly, it's a joy every day. It's better than a steak. It's better than any other five-star meal. Just sitting there and appreciating that meal I have every day. But that's another routine. It's another habit that I've built and that I've seen. And the more you build those routines and habits in, the more you can see how different things affect you, whether it's your mental, your physical. If I'm going to have a burger during that 12 o'clock meal, I bet you an hour, 2 hours later, I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be groggy. You shape things according to what you're after. Yeah, for me, it's really about being really intentional about what I do and how does it affect me. And it's only when you have that specific routine that you can start seeing, okay, this is, so if you eat a slice of bread today and you eat something else tomorrow, you don't know the effects that it have on you. You might do it after. But if you do a slice of bread every day for 3 months in a row, and then you change it, and oftentimes that's how people realize they're actually allergic to something, is they'll eat something for a while, something would not be right. They'll go to the doctor, they'll say, stop eating certain things for a while, and then we introduce the food back into your body. And then slowly, and then one day they introduce something and they see that's the reason for whatever it caused to their body. And then they realize, oh, I'm allergic to this thing. So that's really what the journey you go after. You see how it affects you. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens over a process of time.
That's true. That's true. Wow. That's masterpiece, because if you were not encouraged and inspired by that answer, just that last few minutes, I actually want you to hit pause and then go back and listen to that again. I love it because it's so practical. But again, there's no pressure. You find your own process because we are all in a journey. We talk about this now, but we see the success in Mike's boring morning ritual, but he's done it for years. So if you don't have a morning ritual, maybe it's time to think about it, especially to the young people who are listening to us, that these things can be acquired and you have to train and discipline yourself.
Let me just add, I think the goal is always to design your own process. So what does your process look like? I've studied many different people's processes. I've studied some of the psychology, why they do it, some of the medical reasons they do it. And over time, it's taken me a while, taken me many years really. And I'm still defining. My wife would say to me, you're always changing your routine. But I find that I change some of my routine. Maybe if we talk in a year from now, it might be a different routine, but one thing I can promise you, there's going to be a routine. The routine is without fail, it's going to be there. But the way I address it, if I think my quiet time, there's moments where I would spend an hour in God's word and I'm like, oh, I'm not getting anything. And I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but I'd love to get something. And probably I introduced soap maybe 6 months ago because I felt, oh, I'm just reading, but I really want to apply. How do I apply this? I reverted back to soap. And there might be a time again where I change that again. But really finding what works for you. And we go through different seasons. There was a season where I would wake up at 4 o'clock to do all of this because my boys would clockwork wake up at 5. Or actually, they woke up at 6. Then I started doing my quiet time at 5. Then they started waking up at 5. Then I started waking up at 4 o'clock. So I want to get that hour. But it's always changing. But I think when you have it's almost like when you have a ritual, when you have kind of like the framework, you can build on that framework. And I think that is the beauty of time, is you get to really understand what is it that, what brings me my most energy, what time of the day. They talk about these different zones in a day, the green zone, red zone, and yellow zone. Green zone is when you're at your optimum. You're fired in your head. You can think through good ideas. Red zone is like the lull of the day. Oh, this is probably the time of the day we don't want to do your best work because you don't get to do it. It's like you're staring at a computer. Then pick up a book, read something. I think yellow, I can't remember exactly what yellow was. You get to learn the rhythms of your day and what are the things that really helps me every day. And the one thing I didn't include is I take a cold shower every morning because that really wakes you up every morning. So I can highly recommend the cold shower.
Okay, the cold shower. So I'm sure Jesus also did cold showers in his morning ritual.
He did. I'm sure he did. What hot water? Where would the hot water come from? Norbert, you live in a prime location. If I could change one thing just in the mornings, I would want to be in a really cold environment like you. I would just go out, I'll dive in the snow for a minute, I'll just get my body ready for the day. So I just want to encourage you on that. You don't need a cold shower. There's a
You just
lot
need
of
to go
snow.
outside.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yes,
snow.
yes. Yes, Mike, it has been an incredible conversation. I just want to wrap our episode today with just one final question. A lot of our listeners are leaders and they are running small businesses or even their own coaching business, or dads like you and husbands who have families. And they might be really struggling right now, and they've listened to us and they've heard what we've spoken about, and they feel very far from the success or even see the symptoms of really failing, and maybe they feel stuck as well. So is there one or two things that they can immediately apply into their lives that you can recommend so that they can at least get out of this pattern, as we said, before burning completely out?
Yeah. I would highly recommend for anybody to find a coach. I've got a coach. I've got actually two coaches myself that help me just work through my thinking and my processes. And I would say take a moment. If you don't journal, I can highly recommend journaling, understanding what goes on inside of yourself, what are the things you're going through. Another word is rest. Rest is such a powerful thing. Sometimes afternoon nap, I'll put my hand up. I enjoy a quick afternoon nap. It might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but that just does something for me. It gets my head out of the busyness. So I can highly recommend that. The 3 R's I've got here is to rest, reflect, and write. But write is with a W. But those are good. And then I think it's good to be honest as well. Like if you're building your own business, I've never built my own business. I've always been part of an organization, and there's always been a financial backing. It's always been driven by a whole lot of momentum. Getting something off the ground, second to having 3 boys, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So I've built some resilience inside of me. But building something from scratch, respect to you, building a masterpiece, that doesn't just happen. It takes something from you. When you understand your why, what is the reason that I do this every day? I think that gives you energy. And there's not one morning. I would have early mornings and late evenings, but there's not one morning where I don't feel energized and rejuvenated to do what I'm going to do today. It's helping people discover, design, and master their life's mission. That's what I love to do. I love every conversation I have, every coaching conversation, that moment when the lights go on for that person and they can see there's light at the end of the tunnel. That's really what gets me going. Oftentimes it's remind yourself of those things, but also remind yourselves again of your why. I say people lose their way because they lose their why. Always go back to what is the reason that I'm doing this thing? What initially made me do this? And you're going to find that strength somewhere when you find your why. And that's probably my encouragement today, Norbert, is surround yourself with like-minded people. Community is massive. As I said, I've been part of a community, been part of a big organization. Now you're stepping out, and it's really a tough thing. They say leaders are lonely. I don't think leaders are lonely. I think it's when you go into those transitions, that's when it becomes really lonely. I think the higher you go up in leadership, the more friends you attain, the more people want to know you, get to know you. But it's really in that transition that I think that's really lonely. So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're starting or you've built business for a while. Yeah, I can just encourage to build relationship with like-minded leaders.
Yes, Mike, that was so good. How can our masterpiece makers follow you if they want to learn more about your coaching, and how can they get hold of you?
Yeah, easiest one is just going to be Instagram at Mike Sadie. One track mind. If they want to head out there, they can send me a direct message or something. Yeah, that's going to be the easiest way. There's a Facebook page up, Mike Sadie. Yeah, either one of those two, but I'd probably say Instagram's going to be the fastest for them.
Yes, masterpiece makers, go ahead. Please take your phones now. Follow Mike. And he's dropping so much gold in that Instagram account. And Mike, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming on our show, for adding value to our masterpiece makers. And we cheering you on, believing in what you do. And thank you so much for the encouragement and for everything that you do.
Thanks, Norbert. Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks to all the listeners.
And masterpiece makers, thank you so much for joining us. And that wraps up our conversation today. Thank you for being here. And as I've said, we're always here to build your faith and inspire your business. Until next time, see you in the next episode.